those of you who don't know, I've been away in the States at KubeCon. I won't go into KubeCon in this video that much. I hope to do one later in the week or early next week, talking about how great KubeCon actually was. But the reason I bring it up is that whilst traveling for 5 days, Wizards of the Coast managed to announce and show off more Fallout cards. They announced the Marvel crossover in general, and then started to reveal Ixalan cards as well. It is crazy how much shit just got loaded onto us in a 5-day period. And I think this is at the crux of the issue with all of this, that people are reacting so badly to a Marvel crossover and the bombardment of information, is because the schedule is so crammed. The release schedule is crammed, and the announcement schedule is even more crammed, because every announcement for everything takes a longer period of time. We have initial announcement, we have like early previews, mid previews, late previews, and so on and so on. Normally those three things are sequenced into a week or 2 week window, but either way, we have been given new information at all times. Like it's very rare to have a period where we don't. Some people hadn't even received their Doctor Who decks in the post by the time we were already talking about the Fallout decks that aren't out till next March. And we're still talking about the Fallout decks as they announce the Marvel crossover. Now, the Marvel crossover is the main point of this video. It gets me unreasonably excited. This must be the biggest crossover that Magic the Gathering has had, and one of my more wanted ones as well. As a point of note, it goes in this order for me. I would like Star Wars at number 1, DC Comics at number 2, I think Marvel at number 3, and because of my recent starting to watch of Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds, Star Trek at number 4. Now, I just thought that both Star Wars and Marvel were off the table, so I really only had 2 real strong wants. There are other random things that I could like when they announced the Evil Dead 1, that was something I never thought would happen, but it happened, and then I realised I wanted it more than I realised, so there's a bit of that, but these are the ones that they can make full sets out of. So to go over what exactly has been announced, well, they're doing a combination crossover, a multi-year crossover, starting in 2025 with Marvel. Now, it's with Marvel Comics, not Marvel Studios, so it is primarily based upon the comic books, not the movies. That's not a certainty, but it's a strong likelihood based upon who the branding is being associated with. There will be multiple collectible products, and there will be tentpole sets. Not tentpole set, tentpole sets. When we say tentpole, it normally means something grand that props the brand up. In the case with Magic, it talks about the big like standout sets, the big draftable booster product sets that normally have commander decks associated with them and then have multiple booster products associated with them too. So for example, that's your standard sets, that's your, to an extent, Commander Masters. I don't know if they actually class that as tentpole. And of course there's Lord of the Rings as well. And if you think my voice is going more than it normally is, yes, you're correct. The weekend absolutely took it out of me, so did the travel. I've got really bad acid reflux that also seems to mess with my throat. So it sounds to me like we're getting at least 2, or more than 1, so 2, sets like Lord of the Rings, which makes a lot more sense really. Whilst Lord of the Rings is of course an epic and huge franchise, Marvel does lend a lot more history than Lord of the Rings in the sense of ongoing stories being told. There are so many things they can do with Marvel. I started to try and note down some of my favourite stories and just didn't bother. Like, everyone must be able to name at least one thing from Marvel they want. My most excited things to see would be a re-examining of Civil War, one of my favourite, the 2005 story arc, because the movie didn't do it justice. House of M is one of my favourite arcs within X-Men, as well as Grant Morrison's run, and of course Old Man Logan as well. That's another thing I'm hugely a fan of. But seeing Spider-Man and the Spider-Man mythos and the X-Men come to Magic is very, very exciting for me. I was a big comic nerd at uni, and I fell off because of how hard it is to keep up with comic books, more so than even Magic. We all joke that there's so much Magic product to keep up with, but in reality you can just ignore things and come back for the next release, where with comic books you kind of feel left out when you don't know what happened in the last story arc. So the other exciting element of this for me is that with Marvel coming to the fold, that means that Wizards are talking to Disney, which means that Star Wars probably isn't far behind. And you might have guessed from the name PleasantKenobi and some of the tattoos that I've got that I really like Star Wars. But it's interesting with Marvel and Star Wars because they are cultural properties that have been sort of mined so heavily in recent time. The return to the well with the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, for example, and then the subsequent shows and extended media, that a lot of people are fatigued or bored with these properties. And that's a really valid place to be at. I mean, I love both these things, and I'm also kind of bored and fatigued with some of it too. Like, I just gave up trying to watch Book of Boba Fett. I still haven't even brought myself to watch Andor, and people tell me I should. Meanwhile, I'm also not up to date with Marvel as well. I've basically given up with their TV shows. It's a shame in a sense that we get to this point of saturation. There's an argument Magic kind of does the same thing already, so maybe these brands fit really well. And whilst I believe that the fatigue is real and it's completely a valid way to feel about these properties, I do think they are kind of like buzzword talking points that people will go to and they don't really have much else to say. So the comment section of my Instagram account, for example, is full of people mentioning how Magic is Fortniteifying itself and Marvel has ruined cinema. And neither of those things are things that people could probably expand upon. Well, some people can, but a lot of those comments probably can't expand upon beyond that because they're just buzzwords to throw out there. The Fortniteification thing I'm going to do an entire video on because I don't believe it's Fortniteification. I believe a secret lair is just 4 cards with a really shallow look at an IP. That is essentially Fortniteification. But when you get a whole draft set with archetypes built that I build upon like a mechanical identity and thematic identity of the original property, or you have things like where you change the color of Aragorn in order to, to change the color of Aragorn to examine the white essentialism of Tolkien's work. They're doing things that are so wildly beyond what Fortnite would do with its making Optimus Prime do a floss dance in front of Martin Luther King's memorial that I believe it's unfair to call it Fortniteification at this point. That's not to say that Magic doesn't do that. I do believe when we have that shallow look, when we only have a handful of cards, perhaps the Jurassic World stuff in Ixalan, although so much stuff has been revealed in the last 5 days and I've been away at an event, I'm not even sure if I've seen them all, but maybe that could be more like that. But when we get full draft sets and Commander products, the Warhammer decks, Doctor Who and Lord of the Rings being examples of that, I don't think calling them Fortniteification is even remotely fair. Beyond that, having people tell you that Marvel has ruined cinema is very funny to me because the people saying it aren't often the most, I don't know, well-read when it comes to cinema. I'm not going to go into that too much, but again, I think it's a buzzword talking point that people parrot to try and sound like they know what they're talking about when they don't. So beyond that, is Universes Beyond leading to too much product? Well, I don't know. I think there is a little bit too much product coming from the old school boomer-esque view that Magic is this lifestyle product that we all have to engage with all of it and know what all of it does. That's kind of what Magic used to be. There's two issues to the statement of is Universes Beyond making too much product. One, I think if they weren't doing Marvel and Lord of the Rings crossovers, I think we'd probably see the same amount of product. It just wouldn't be branded as other IP. I think Wizards would try and make as much as they can sell because one of the primary goals of the company is to make money for Hasbro. But in addition to that, there is a change with the game and with the consumer like you and I and the culture around the consumption of Magic. Like I said, it used to be this thing that I and most players who were as influential as I did, the players that played competitively, for example, they would want to know every card that comes out and every set and know everything. You would pore over every spoiler. And we're getting to a point where that just isn't realistic. It's just not really possible. Not even for someone like me whose job is to talk about Magic for a living. This morning when I woke up and saw there was more Ixalan stuff to look at after getting back from my trip jet lagged, it just made me grasp my head. I'm not joking. I was like this. I was having a shit and I was like this. And I was like, holy, I'm glad I'm on the toilet because at least there's some sort of release for this poor body. But essentially Magic has moved away from doing that or being that for people now. Like you can't be that even if you wanted to be, because there's just too much stuff. And as the game gets more and more popular and more successful, it will produce more and more stuff. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm saying it might even be a net negative overall because there's just such a wall of noise when it comes to Magic product and Magic releases, but it is how it is. It is what it is the kind of thing that an old man at the pub would say to you drinking his drink as you discuss politics, you know. Oh, I just think the Tories are a bunch of cunts. Well, it is what it is. He sips his pint as he thinks he's going to vote for them again. But it is what it is. We can't really stop it unless we mass vote with our wallets. And the problem with voting with your wallets is that A, not all votes are equal, and B, as they get a new influx of new players from other areas, like Marvel fans, for example, your voting of not being there will not be acknowledged. In essence, what I'm saying is voting with your wallet often doesn't work in circumstances like this. But ultimately, you can kind of try to engage with the game where you want to. I just like the idea that this product is not for you, because I feel like that thing has been used to try and explain away why some things are expensive and some things aren't. Basically, allowing there to be a pseudo class system in terms of consumers and purchasing power within Magic. There's stuff for the whales and there's stuff for the poor and the peasants, and I hate that. But I do think that you can cultivate your experience, like what you want to play in Commander. Cube, for example, is an incredible example of this. People had custom limited environments that did include Universes Beyond, didn't include Universes Beyond, were only particular sets, were expanded versions of cards, were a whole Mirage block, and so on and so on. You can cultivate your gaming experience via these different mediums, these different formats. Of course, when it comes to the competitive side of things, it's a lot harder to do. If a card is just strictly the best version of itself and it happens to be Barbie, let's go party, let's go Barbie, then you're stuck playing it, right? But there's two elements to that. One is that the formats where this happens, like Legacy, where everything is legal, it is kind of a design flaw of Legacy in its first instance. Bearing in mind that Legacy is like my favorite constructed format, like 60 card constructed format at the moment. So I'm not like insulting something I don't love, but it has got that flaw that everything is involved, that everything is legal. That used to be that we'd get cards designed for just 4-player Magic, become too good, True Name Nemesis for example, but now we're having cards designed for like weird crossovers that don't go through Standard or Modern, also going into Legacy. It's like a design flaw of the format itself. But ultimately, I don't mind. I think it's funny, but other people might feel differently, and I get that. I do think they can work to not have everything go through Modern. Lord of the Rings going through Modern ended up not being as bad as we expected. They basically toned down the power level from Modern Horizons 1 and 2, so we didn't end up with just Gandalf and Frodo being the best things ever. We did end up with the One Ring and Bowmaster being the best things ever in their respective categories, but that also speaks testament to the fact that they aren't trying to push all of the named cards to be the best things they can be. I mean, the proof is in the pudding when we finally get Iron Man, Spider-Man, Captain America and Thor, and how good those cards end up being, and also if they decide to go through Modern, which, if I'm honest, I think it would be a mistake if they do, but I think they will. But honestly, it's no big secret I think Modern is mismanaged and a fucking mess, right? So it is what it is. Magic is this huge game, like absolutely massive. When you compare it to most games, even comparable card games, it's bigger. Like even things like Yu-Gi-Oh! That I believe makes more money year on year, is still as a game smaller. Less formats, less ways to play, less ways for the community to engage beyond perhaps a cartoon, for example. Not a value judgment on the cartoon or whatever. I'm just saying there isn't like all these things like Cube, Commander, Modern, Legacy, Pioneer, Tiny Leaders, Pauper, and so on. And as the game grows year on year, both in terms of itself being this fucking linchpin of the capitalist machine of Hasbro and the money that it makes, but also as a game with game pieces and players, it's going to expand out and bloom into different directions in different ways. And asking it to stand still and be the game it was in 2009 is probably an unfair ask. But you are allowed to lament that it's not, by the way. I'm not saying you can't miss what it once was. There are points in Magic that I'm very nostalgic for that I miss. I played a cube this weekend that was the Museum of Modern. And it felt like Modern from a certain era, and it was incredible. It's my favourite cube of the entire weekend because it captured a nostalgia in me. Being nostalgic or longing for or missing something that has gone is okay, but expecting things to stay stagnant so you can hold on to that feeling is just unrealistic, and it's not gonna serve you well in life in multiple areas, let alone your favorite trading card game. The last thing I wanted to hit before I sign off is that I've seen people start talking about gatekeeping, with Magic obviously like rocketing towards, in the year 2025, a huge mainstream branching out, with Marvel being one of the biggest properties they could possibly do in order to get Magic to go more mainstream. Not that it's not mainstream already, but to get more into the popular consciousness. And some people want to stop people from coming in, Marvel fans and new players and kids, so they want to consciously gatekeep the game. Now, I've seen this already in the Warhammer community. There are people that want to gatekeep Warhammer and 40k and the modelling and wargaming community and hobby away from people they perceive to be wanting to change it. And those people, almost unanimously, the gatekeepers perceive to be wanting to change it, are women, people of colour, trans people, gay people, LGBTQ people. It is actually wild how open the bigots are in the Warhammer community. And for the most part, they're shut down and dismissed as being pieces of shit that they are. But then we get people like openly saying on Reddit that they're going to go out of their way to target the Thanos or the Iron Man player, or to, not be helpful towards those players in their stores and gatekeep them in online communities. And essentially, it stinks of like, I don't want new people in my club, or I thought it was cool before it was cool, or whatever. But ultimately, those people who are feeling that way right now that might be watching this video, who are thinking this is a good idea, that a little bit of gatekeeping keeps things pure, you will find yourself on the same side as the kind of dickheads that are gatekeeping Warhammer. The people who don't want LGBTQ people or people of colour in their game and their gaming space. Those are the kind of people that will be siding with you. And I just have to ask, if that is the case, if it's those people siding with you, do you not think you might be in the wrong? Is the game exploding and growing and garnering mainstream appeal good for the game and the people playing it overall? There's a debate to be had there about whether what's good for the company and the bottom line is always good for the player. But ultimately, I just want to invite people in to enjoy a game that I think is the greatest game ever made. And if people want to stand against that, then fuck those people. I'm against them. I've been Vince, also PleasantKenobi on the internet. Thank you for watching this rather lower energy. I've just come back from a trip. I've been shitting my guts out sort of video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I know a load of you are not going to agree with me because I'm being largely positive about the Marvel thing. I'm actually super fucking excited as a old school comic book nerd. I say old school. I've always thought I was a new school comic book nerd, but I realized that I'm an old man now. So everything I liked 10, 15 years ago is old school. Tell me what you think in the comment section below, and I'll be back with more videos later in the week. I'll see you soon. Ta-ta for now.